Now it's time for Ask Us. That is where we take your questions on the pandemic to experts who are helping us navigate these unprecedented times. We get your questions from our website, from Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. For the record, Facebook is a funder of the NewsHour. Amna Nawaz has more.
Thanks, Judy, and thanks to all of you for sending us your questions. Now, with so many communities opening back up across the country, a lot of you wrote in with questions on how to avoid catching or transmitting the coronavirus. To answer those questions and those concerns, we're joined by Angela Rasmussen. She's a virologist at Columbia University and holds a PhD in microbiology. Angela, welcome to the NewsHour. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Amna.
So let's jump right into these questions. Now, the first one comes from Carol Campbell. She's in Lynn, Massachusetts. She reached out to us on Facebook, and she sent us this video.
If a runner has the virus and coughs out loud because there's no one around, does the virus linger in the air or on the ground? And if yes, how long is the virus still viable?
Angela, it's an important question dealing with maybe asymptomatic carriers out in public without masks. What do you say to her?
We don't really know in every situation how long the virus will linger in the air. But in general, if you are just passing somebody on the street, walking by them, whether you're running or walking, the risk of transmission is probably fairly low. And the reason for that is that in many cases where we have seen transmission, they're usually happening in indoor environments, environments that have a lot of people or large crowds of people, where you're talking to that person for a longer duration of time. So if you're just sort of incidentally passing somebody while you're out running or jogging, whether they cough or sneeze or anything else, the risk is not zero, but it's likely quite low.
That's very good to know. We'll hopefully ease some concerns out there. Let's move on to our next question. It comes from Nancy Pardo. She's from Mount Prospect, Illinois, and Nancy sent us this video.
Why are other countries spraying disinfectant on the streets if it's safe to go outside? Should the U.S. be doing the same? In New York, for instance?
Angela, we've seen some of these videos in other countries, those masses of gases as people are spraying down subways and streets. What should we know about that? Should the U.S. be doing it?
So I think that there is a difference between spraying down surfaces in a subway car versus spraying down the road. To my knowledge, there is a very low, if not completely non-existent risk from contracting coronavirus that might be on the ground. Unless you're licking the ground or exposing your mouth, your nose to the bottom of your shoes, a subway car is a different story. In a subway car, you're going to have people breathing, producing respiratory droplets, and potentially touching those surfaces. And you could potentially touch one of those surfaces, touch your hand to your mouth or nose, and become infected that way. Certainly, there can be some value within an indoor environment where there has been cases of transmission to disinfect high-touch surfaces like a subway car. But in general, I don't think that it's necessary to go out and start disinfecting the entire environment outdoors in the United States.
Moving right along now to our next question. It comes to us from Liberty, Missouri. That's where we find Linda Armstrong. She reached out to us on Facebook, and she sent us this video.
What is the risk of swimming in a shared swimming pool?
It's a very simple question, Angela. What do you say to her?
So nobody has done any studies on SARS coronavirus 2 and how long it can persist in bodies of water, such as swimming pools, lakes, rivers, or the ocean. However, a group recently did an analysis of other studies that have been published on other coronaviruses. And in general, coronaviruses are fairly sensitive to chlorine and other oxidants that are put in swimming pools to disinfect them. So at a pool, you're probably very unlikely to become infected by swimming in the actual pool. The biggest risk is going to be in crowds of people. So one thing people should keep in mind is that viruses cannot reproduce on their own. They require a host to infect. So you're always going to be at a higher risk of exposure to a virus when you're around other hosts. And for this virus, those other hosts are other people. So if you're going to the pool or the beach in the summer, just make sure that you are practicing good physical distancing and avoiding crowds.
All very good, useful information in this summer. Our last question comes to us from Gabrielle Atchison. She's from Buffalo, New York. She reached out to us on our website, and she sent us this video.
I'm relying on deliveries of food and supplies in an effort to stay home. How worried do we have to be about COVID-19 on cardboard boxes and plastic bags? Also, can the disease pass through food?
Angela, so many people relying on those deliveries now. What do we know about transmission through the boxes and also through the food?
That's an excellent question. This has actually been studied for SARS coronavirus 2. And the virus can persist on cardboard for up to 24 hours. It can persist on plastic surfaces for up to 3 days, according to these experiments that were done under laboratory conditions. However, it's really important to note that in these studies, after that period of time, while there was still infectious virus detectable, there were 1,000 times less virus particles than there were at the beginning of the experiment. And the good news about groceries and packages in general is that if you wash your hands after you're handling these packages, the risk becomes even lower to the point where it's probably minimal. As far as eating the virus and becoming infected with it by consuming food, we don't really have any information about that. But when you are eating, you're generally swallowing things, and those things go into your stomach, which is a very highly acidic environment. Most enveloped viruses, like coronaviruses, cannot survive and remain stable in that environment. Personally, I don't worry about contracting the virus from the food that I eat and the groceries that I prepare for meals for my family.
Always good to know what someone, an expert in microbiology, is doing herself. Angela Rasmussen, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and taking these questions.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Amna.
And thanks to all of you for your questions. You can send us more anytime via NewsHour's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram accounts, or on our website. That's pbs.org/newshour.
A lot of good advice. Thank you, Amna.